Welcome to Tattoo Tabletop. My name is James, and today we are taking a look at the Balance Dataslate and choosing my top 3 favorite picks from the change going into Pariah Nexus. So Pariah Nexus is finally dropped. It's actually out as of time of recording, and I am stoked. I am overall extremely happy with all the changes. Enough talk, let's dive in. So, obviously this has got all the factions, but we're just going to go straight to the ones that are my personal favorites. So obviously this is talking about all the points here, and if we go over here, we have the actual Balance Dataslate. So, it's quite extensive, but some of my favorite changes are going to be right here. With one of my favorite factions, the Dark Angels. So when the Dark Angels Codex came out, I personally was really stoked. I was really excited to see what they got. And their rules were alright. There really wasn't much going on. You had your Green Wing, you had your Death Wing, and you had your Raven Wing, and that was it. But I don't have much in the way of Raven Wing, so it was not really much for me. And then I was really excited about the Death Wing, and the Death Wing looked solid, but there were certain tricks to it. You had to get the Deathwing keyword, and the best way to get the Deathwing keyword was to have a character attached to the unit, or to just have Deathwing. So there are some benefits to that, but the Green Wing I still think has suffered a little bit. It's a little better, but not by much. But let's dive right in. So one of the main changes that you have is the Grim Resolve detachment rule, which is part of the Unforgiven Task Force, the original one, and basically in your command phase you select a unit and it gets +1 to its objective control. Not great, but that's not what we're here. What we're here for is the Inner Circle Task Force. At the start of your movement phase specified, select one of the following: defensive footing, select one objective marker you control until the start of your next movement phase. That objective marker is your vowed objective marker. Now, the vowed objective marker for that detachment is where you pick an objective and you get +1 to wound against it across the board. Just flat out +1 to wound. That's shooting, that's melee. You're there to kick something off of it. Now, before, you just picked a vowed, specific objective marker, and that was it. Just the one. But now you have aggressive push. Select one or more objective markers that you do not control, so your opponent has to control them. And until the next movement phase, each of those objective markers is one of your vowed objective markers. And basically, so you're getting +1 to wound. Let's say your opponent makes an early move, takes the 3 middle objectives. You can put in your movement phase, you can set that to the aggressive push and then get those 3 objectives bowed. So you're getting +1 to wound on anything that's on that objective. That is huge, that is incredible, and that makes life so nice. And that wasn't it. That's not all the Deathwing love that they got. We got a change to the Deathwing Knights, and specifically their Maces of Absolution gained Anti-Monster 4+, and Anti-Vehicle 4+, so that means they just auto-wound on the 4+ of either monster or vehicle, and they go to AP-2, which is massive, as well as the power weapon variation going to damage 2. So that actually adds a really nice dynamic to those two. It's actually kind of difficult to choose which weapon you actually want to run. This one has 1 more attack. They both hit on 2s. But with that +1 to wound, just Deathwing everywhere. But you think that would be it, but it's not. One of my absolute favorite changes is to the Inner Circle Companions. They're such a cool unit. They're probably one of my favorite model releases this year, but their rules just didn't fit their narrative, and it was really upsetting. These are like the chosen members by the Lion to serve, and it's incredible, and they didn't have much. But now, huge changes. We got the strike and the sweep profiles, which they did have before, and they did have lethal hits and sustained hits too, relatively. However, the biggest changes, so sweep got an additional attack, but not only that, they both went to AP-2. That is huge. That means these Calibanite Greatswords are actually doing damage. It's actually getting through, and on the objective unit, the Mutar failed. On the field manual, sorry, I'm having trouble, 3 units, 3 models is 90 points. That is affordable. That is freaking fantastic. Like, I am stoked for that. So Dark Angels, I'm getting some game time in with Dark Angels. I'm really stoked on that one. So that is number 1. Change number 2 is actually to one of my other favorite factions, the Space Wolves. Now, the Space Wolves have their very own detachment, as do all the chapter supplements, whatever you want to call them. And basically, it was the Champions of Rust. The idea being that you would accomplish certain things or certain deeds, and then those deeds unlocked additional benefits. So realistically, you could get a lot of deeds. However, you had to earn your army rule, which didn't really work. People weren't playing that. Actually, most Space Wolf players were playing the Storm Lance detachment, which gives them the advantage of charge. It's the White Scars inspired one from the generic Space Marines. There is this change here. I think this is a really good change, but time will tell how it actually turns out. But the biggest change to it is at the start of the first battle round, select one of the sagas listed below, excluding the Saga of Majesty, and that saga is considered to have been completed. And you get it for all the Adeptus Astartes models in your army. Now that's huge because you actually get to start with one. You actually get to choose one. This kind of reminds me of my Black Templars. The Black Templars have their vows. You choose a vow and it applies to the rest of the game. The difference being, for Space Wolves, you're choosing one and then you can still unlock the others, because at the end of each player's turn, you can select one of the sagas listed below, excluding the saga you selected at the first of the battle round. And if that saga was completed by your army during that turn, all Adeptus Astartes models gain that associated benefit. So basically, this is actually just giving you an actual vow to start with, and then you're just moving on to the rest of the game and potentially unlocking more sagas. So maybe not the greatest change, maybe not, the most overpowered, but, anything that encourages people to run Space Wolves as Space Wolves gets a big thumbs up from me. Last but not least, number 3, the change to reinforcement stratagems. This is a huge one because I was a recipient of this at the LVO. I played against a guard player who brought back the same unit probably about 2 or 3 times. I had to kill through it with my sword brethren. Overall, it was a good game, decent opponent, but just this is so huge. So in the case of this, if this stratagem has the effect of adding a new unit to your army that is identical to your destroy unit, and they give examples: join the hunt, unending waves, reinforcements, add the following restriction to that stratagem. Restrictions: you can only use this stratagem once per battle. Perfect. I really think that this is a good change for the game. I know, having played against guard and having been on the end of this, I think that this is going to be a huge change. It forces your opponent to actually have to think strategically about what unit they're actually bringing back, and only being able to do it the one time. So I think that's going to be a huge change. I'm really, really stoked on that, and that is why that is my final most excited change. Well, that about wraps it up for me. I've been Tattoo Tabletop, and of course, if you like this content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, the whole thing. Do it all. But also, just let me know what your favorite changes are from the Pariah Nexus Balance Dataslate, and are you really excited about playing a new version of 40k with Pariah Nexus? But until next time, I've been Tattoo Tabletop. Now go paint something.